Caesar had his Brutus, Charles I his Cromwell, and George III may profit by their example. If this be treason, make the most of it. When a new Seleucid ruler, Antiochus IV, takes the stage, hard tyranny comes with him. Antiochus would use Hellenism as a kind of cultural glue to hold his empire together, and he was more than willing to impose it by force. The Seleucid monarch pressed his ambitions all the way to Alexandria, only to be rebuffed and turned around by the Romans, who were allies of the Ptolemies. Back in Jerusalem, revolt broke out in the hope that Antiochus, whose armies were in full retreat, had been killed. Unfortunately for the Jews, rumors of his death were greatly exaggerated. Returning through Judea, the Seleucid emperor not only put down the revolt, he instituted the first purely religious persecution in history. In cahoots with a radical Hellenist Jewish high priest named Menelaus, he outlaws the practice of Judaism. Scrolls of the Torah were burned. Women were crucified with their circumcised infants strung from their necks. A pagan statue was set up in the temple precincts, and a swine sacrificed on the altar, its juice being carried into the Holy of Holies and sprinkled there. The book of Daniel refers cryptically to Antiochus Epiphanes as Hashikutz Hashomim, the abomination who makes desolate. There is one way that Jews may escape the persecution. A Seleucid emissary is sent through every village and town in the land, ordering the local population to consume swine flesh, thereby disavowing all allegiance to Judaism. In one such town called Modi'in, near the border of Samaria, a local Jewish priest is carrying a swine to the altar when an elderly fellow priest named Mattathias becomes filled with rage, grabs a spear and runs him through. He summons his 5 sons to his side, calls for a great insurrection against Seleucid oppression, and he cries out to the whole town. Though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him, and fall away every one from the religion of their fathers, and give consent to his commandments, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers. God forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances. We will not hearken to the king's word to go from our religion, either on the right hand or on the left. Let all those who are fervent for the law and faithful to the covenant follow me. Antiochus responds with fury and brutality, dispatching army after army to put it down. The eldest son, named Judah, takes the helm, striking hammer blows into the flanks of the enemy. It just so happens that the Hebrew word for hammer is Maccabean, which becomes, in popular parlance, Maccabi. The word is also an acrostic representing the verse in Psalms that reads, Mi kamocha ba'elim Hashem. Who is like you, O Lord, among the gods? The Maccabean revolt has been launched. Fighting alongside the Maccabees are a group of deeply religious Jewish zealots known as Hasidim, the pious ones. While they share the same name with the black-coated Hasidic Jews of later centuries, they are a distinct and truly ancient sect of Israelite pietists, known for cultivating an intimate relationship with God. Was Jesus perhaps one of these ancient Hasidic Jews? The band of Hasidim is not long to be left unnoticed. Somehow their whereabouts are compromised, and a contingent of Syrian troops advance on the caves. They attack deliberately on the Sabbath day, and the Hasidim within refuse to fight back. "Let us all die guiltless," they declare. "We call heaven and earth to witness that you destroy us unlawfully." So we read in 1 Maccabees 2:37. Hurling firebrands into the dark recesses, the Syrians burned to death many of the hapless defenders. So they attacked them on the Sabbath, and they died, with their wives and their children and their cattle, to the number of 1,000 people. So we read. After these atrocities, the Hasidim joined the Maccabees, fighting together for the liberation of Jerusalem. The Maccabean revolt rages on from its beginning in 168 BCE until 164, when the Maccabees retake the city of Jerusalem. They find a defiled altar and a long extinguished menorah. According to one story, they find only enough oil to light the candelabra for a single day, but it miraculously burns for 8 full days until new oil can be manufactured. The temple is rededicated amidst great rejoicing in a festival known to this day as Hanukkah, Hanukkah. But the revolt is still not over, and the Seleucids will not give in so easily. Additional generals are dispatched, and more battles fought. It will take years of additional struggle before this revolutionary war can bring about a new and independent Israel. In the interim, one of the 5 Maccabee brothers, Jonathan, comes to the helm of leadership. Using the internal rivalries that erupt in the Syrian ranks to assume for himself the mantle of the high priesthood. Trouble is, he's not of the right priestly family to become high priest. According to Israelite law, that honor is reserved for members of the family of Tzadok. Jonathan is of the house of Hashmon, a Hasmonean. Oddly, most of his countrymen don't object and are more than willing to trade their religious principles for political security, which they are sure this war hero will bring. Only the sect of Hasidim gets it. They are not about to sacrifice principle on the altar of expediency. They consider Jonathan's usurpation of the high priesthood to be only one remove from the very real tyranny they had been fighting against. Consequently, they withdraw their support and defect from the government altogether. As for Jonathan, the great Maccabee warrior, his motives shift from purely religious, when he fought to retake Jerusalem from the Syrians, to political, as he reaches out to cement an alliance with a new and growing power to the west, Rome. But Jonathan is not destined for a long career. He's kidnapped and subsequently murdered in continuing rumbles with his Seleucid foes. In his place, another Maccabee, Simon, will take absolute power. not only as high priest, but king. This is double tyranny in the minds of some. Not only is he a Hasmonean and therefore from the wrong family to be high priest, he isn't from the line of David and therefore is on the throne illegitimately. The society starts to come unglued. At some point, a newly formed renegade sect heads east into the Judean desert to create an alternate society, so to speak, on the shores of the Dead Sea, eagerly awaiting divine rescue by the promised Messiah. They are known as the Essenes, and their claim to fame is the literary product they produce, an enormous cache of documents that have come to be called the Dead Sea Scrolls. These texts comprise the oldest copies of the Hebrew Bible known in all the world, as well as hundreds of additional texts and assorted parchments, including their own rule books on how their sect should be organized politically. Lording over the community and presiding over its assemblies is a supreme teacher called the guardian, or overseer. It is he who examines every potential member for entrance into the community, while another officer called the bursar supervises the group's finances and property, which is held in common. Clearly, the Judeans are faced with some growing challenges and poor choices, as the original Maccabee freedom fighters become tyrants in their own right. One Hasmonean king, Aristobulus I, conquers the northern province known as the Galilee and forcibly converts it to Judaism. A tyrannical act in the minds of some, but over time, the Galilee will become a headquarters for the most militant of Jewish zealots. When the Hasmonean king Alexander Jannaeus, Yanai in Hebrew, comes to the throne in the year 103 BCE, a new despotism comes with him. He conquers and forcibly converts to Judaism a province in the southeast known as Idumea. That act will in time produce devastating results in the form of a tyrant who will put all others to shame. For now, Yanai is met by a new grassroots movement that is crystallized in opposition. But with the death of Jannaeus and the accession of his widow, Queen Salome Alexandra, Shlom Tzion in Hebrew, peace will come between the Pharisees and the Hasmoneans. The new queen orchestrates an ingenious compromise by which one of her two sons, who has strong Pharisee leanings, is given the high priesthood, while the other, a Sadducee, is given charge of the army. Moreover, the great assembly is now reorganized, favoring the Pharisees. As a permanent legal body, it is composed of 71 members who vote on the most important civil and criminal matters and other issues of great import, such as declaring war. Meeting in the sacred precincts of the temple, it is known as the Great Sanhedrin. Across the land, every city has its own small Sanhedrin, or Sanhedrin, of 23 judges who decide all manner of local cases. Yes, it's still a monarchy, but Queen Shlom Tzion, whose name means Peace of Zion, is the one Hasmonean monarch who is so revered that even today a street in downtown Jerusalem bears her name. The years 76 to 67 BCE amount to a golden decade for this war-ravaged land. Internally, the queen's political acumen has made power sharing, checks and balances, a reality in a way that would make Montesquieu proud. She increases the size of the military, while leaving social welfare to those closest to the people and best suited to caring for them, the Pharisees. Unfortunately, her death will bring on strong rivalry between her two sons, Aristobulus II and Hyrcanus II, whose forces end up in bitter combat with each other. Neither seems aware of the looming threat to the west, Rome. In the year 63 BCE, Pompey the Great, member along with Marcus Licinius Crassus and Julius Caesar of the first triumvirate, comes marauding through the Levant. In short order, a century of Jewish struggle for an independent land with fledgling quasi-democratic institutions comes to an end. I needed, of course, to subjugate the squabbling little kingdom of Judea and take it into the Roman orbit. But I saw that the walls of Jerusalem were so firm that it would be difficult to overcome them, and that the valley before the walls was terrible, and that the temple, which was within that valley, was itself encompassed with a very strong wall, insomuch that if the city were taken, the temple would be a second place for refuge, for the enemy to retire to. Fortunately for us, Hyrcanus II still had supporters in the city. They opened a gate situated in the northwestern part of the city wall and let us in. In the end, 12,000 Jews were slaughtered, while only a few of our troops were killed. I myself entered the temple's Holy of Holies, which only the high priest was allowed to enter, and the Jews said that I had desecrated it. I did not remove anything, neither its treasures nor any funds, and the next day I ordered the temple cleansed and its rituals resumed. I decided to confirm Hyrcanus II as high priest, but only as an obedient lackey under Roman hegemony. I then headed back to Rome, taking Aristobulus with me for a triumphal procession. A worse fate, however, will be in store for the people of the land in the years to come. For one of Hyrcanus's friends, by the name of Antipater, has a son who will finagle his way to absolute rule with the full consent of his associates in Rome. His name will ring through the ages as a symbol of loyal, though brutal, tyranny: Herod.